How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number this open line Friday is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very happy to have you. Don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. The show notes coming out any second, all the stuff I'm talking about, and then some on the show today. We've got to begin with two pieces of good news. There is actually very good news in the economy. Inflation surprised everyone in January. We're getting surprises. Now, the surprises, you should know, are causing Democrats to suggest that the Trump administration is rigging the numbers. Jobs created in January, 130,000, almost as much jobs as were created total in 2025. Inflation slowed to 2.4% in January. Core inflation, 2.5%, overall 2.4%, surprising analysts. Now, if you're a longtime listener of this program, and this is a see, I told you so moment for me, I told you guys and have been telling you one of the key components to the president's plan has been expanding energy production to lower gas prices, understanding that lowering gas prices would have a spillover effect into food. And a lot of people scoffed at the idea, but in the same way that energy prices and gas prices skyrocketing exacerbated the inflation for Biden that was coupled with massive government spending, it was always very obvious to me and anyone who wasn't broken by Trump derangement syndrome that though tariffs cause price increases, by the way, it's a one-time price increase, it's not a constant inflationary effect, that gas prices coming down would help lower prices that had been impacted, particularly food prices, by lower gas prices. When gas prices at the pump go up, food prices ultimately go up because of the costs of transportation related to the food. When gas prices go down, food prices can go down. The president, by expanding production, by expanding drilling, by deregulating the industry, energy industry, can cause gas prices to go down. They have been going down. And guess what? As I told you would probably happen, gas prices going down has caused inflation to go down. Consumer prices, according to the Wall Street Journal, rose 2.4% in January from a year earlier, cooler than the 2.7% recorded in December, the Labor Department said. Economists had expected inflation of 2.5%. Core prices, which exclude volatile food and energy items, rose 2.5% from a year earlier. Economists expected that. Stock indices fell in morning trading on Friday. The latest annual number had some help since the high inflation reading from January 2025 is now dropped out of the past 12 months of data. Month over month from December, consumer prices in January rose a seasonal adjusted 0.2% and core prices rose 0.3%. Americans are facing rising costs for an array of services, including airline tickets and hospital care. Costs for services rose at their fastest monthly clip in a year. A frustrating data point for economists who have warned that lingering services inflation will be challenging to arrest. Although Friday's report was milder than what many economists expected, it did not bring strong evidence that inflation's underlying trend is cooling rapidly towards the 2% goal. That is true. However, keep gas prices low, and inflation over time helps sort itself out. Now, here are price changes year over year. Ground beef is up over 16%. Home health care up over 12%. Price of watches up about 7%. Hospital care up about 7%. Laundry services up about 6%. Mass transportation up about 5%. Apparel barely up at all, only about 1% less than inflation. Used car and truck prices have gone down. Gasoline prices have gone down a lot. Now, one analyst, Subhadra Rajapi, head of the U.S. research investment firm Societe Generale, says, I think everybody believes that tariffs are going to have a transitory effect on inflation, but the question of when those tariff effects fade is going to be more of a second half of the year story than a first half of the year story. Why? Because the president has kept moving tariffs around. He did Liberation Day. The market fell, so he put off the tariffs. Then he put them on. He lowered the rate. He got rid of some. He put some back. He added some more. He walked them back. It's been very chaotic, which gets me to the other good news. Again, your host, I'm pointing out I'm right because of how many of you often think you were wrong about this. Right again. The president of the United States is announcing a walkback of steel and aluminum tariffs. Why? Because, as I said would happen, Americans have been paying the price, not foreign companies. There's actually a pretty damning indictment of how the regulatory process of tariffs has worked in the Financial Times today, where they noted that one European company has sent multiple shipments of aluminum to the United States, all the same shipment, and has paid different tariff rates every single time as they go to different ports of entry, and the customs officers at each different port use a different calculation. That's how screwed up the regulatory environment of tariffs are, and they've caused the prices of steel and aluminum to go up. Beer can prices have gone up. Tin can prices have gone up. Do you know, we rarely make homemade pie crust in our house because the Pillsbury pie crust that uses the actual lard is actually really good and flaky pie crust. I mean, why mess with the Pillsbury, not the vegetable shortening one, the one that actual lard is? Very flaky, very good pie crust for pies. The price has gone up. You know why? Because they come in aluminum pans. And the aluminum that the aluminum pans are made with, the price has gone up. So the pie price, the frozen dough of the pre-pressed pies in the grocery stores, the price has gone up because of President Trump's tariffs. Now listen, and this is something you need to pay attention to me on, and I don't care that you don't believe me here. It's the God's honest truth. There is an entire environment wrapped around the president of loud voices who have insisted that tariffs are paid for by foreigners. The president himself seems to believe it. The president is walking back steel and aluminum tariffs because you are the people who are paying it. The average American household price has gone up $1,000 a year due to tariffs. If you buy beer, average beer prices have gone up. If you buy canned goods, the average canned good price has gone up. If you are building a house, home prices have in part gone up because of steel and aluminum products that are involved in home building have skyrocketed. Why? Because, and this is economics 101 for everyone that the White House should actually take a class, would understand that when you raise a tariff way up high, and the American producer is now way lower than the tariff, the American producer can raise their price too, keep it under the rate of the tariff, and still make more money. And that's what the American companies did. The American steel producers and the American aluminum producers raised their prices, knowing that they could now make more money and still be cheaper than the tariff products. And the result is that canned good prices went up, pie plate prices went up, steel prices and aluminum prices for automobiles went up, for building construction went up across the board. Even for building ships, which our Navy wants more ships, the price of building ships in the United States has skyrocketed. The Navy's having to pay those costs because of the stupid tariffs. It was economic literacy, and the president has seen the light, thank God Almighty. Steel tariffs and aluminum tariffs are going to, if not go away altogether, be dramatically cut. Why? Because the Trump administration itself is acknowledging that the prices have gone up because of the tariffs, and they're trying to economically incentivize the economy to grow. This is from the Financial Times headline: Donald Trump plans to roll back tariffs on metal and aluminum goods. People said trade officials in the Commerce Department of the U.S. Trade Representative's office believed that tariffs were hurting consumers by raising prices for goods such as pie tins and food and drink cans. Trump's tariff blitz has pushed U.S. duties to their highest level since before the Second World War, but the president has repeatedly walked back some of his stiffest levies amid voter anger at the affordability crisis. The latest move on the metal tariffs is also designed to bring clarity to an increasingly complicated lobbying process in Washington that has emerged since Trump imposed the levies. The administration has so far largely allowed U.S. businesses to lobby for products made of steel and aluminum made by rival foreign producers to be hit with tariffs. The process has been run by the Commerce Department, which has mostly approved the request from domestic companies, citing national security. But the mechanism has led to a sprawling list of household goods subject to the tariffs of up to 50% of their metal content. Officials felt the tariff regime was too complicated to enforce. Countries including the US, UK, Mexico, and Canada, as well as EU members, could stand to benefit from any easing of the tariffs. One European business leader who declined to be named said they knew of a company that had sent 4 identical containers of machinery to the United States and was charged different rates for each one. The Commerce Department last offered U.S. companies an opportunity to nominate foreign suppliers to be hit with tariffs in October, but blew past its 60-day deadline. Do you see how Howard Lutnick in the Epstein files structured this? Howard Lutnick of the Epstein files allowed American companies to target their foreign competitors who were doing business in the United States and punish their competitors with American tariffs. And then the American companies raised their own prices to screw the American consumer. Thanks to Epstein file Howard Lutnick. The president has seen the light. He's getting rid of the tariffs. As inflation comes down from near 3% to 2.4 and 2.5%, as gas prices come down, this could potentially give the Republicans some wind at their back. If the getting rid of the steel and aluminum tariffs revitalizes parts of the economy, lowers home building costs, lowers grocery prices further, along with the low gas prices, well, we could be turning the corner. Couple that with what Scott Bessent believes, which is that when people start getting their tax refunds in March and April, you're going to see some economic revitalization in the country where people right now, the data suggests the economy is good, but people don't feel it, which was very similar to the Biden administration, where their data suggested the economy was good, but people didn't feel it. When people start going to the grocery store and after their grocery run have more money left over, they start to feel like things are better. Things are headed in the right direction. I would like to thank the President of the United States for seeing the light on the tariffs, and I would like you all to understand that for a year I have told you this was coming. And for a year, very loud voices have lied to you and told you that I didn't know what I was talking about. And that those of us who knew it was coming didn't know what we were talking about. And we did the entire time. A lot of people were lying to you and I was not. A lot of people are still lying and I'm not going to. It was always Economics 101. Lower gas prices, you help lower other prices, you help lower inflation. You reduce government spending and printing of money, you lower inflation. You get rid of the tariffs, prices come down. The American producers of steel and aluminum will now lower their prices because with the tariffs going away, the importers of steel and aluminum will now be priced less than the American producers who took advantage of targeting their foreign rivals with tariffs so that they could raise their domestic prices. For all of you who think we need to prop up the American steel and aluminum industry and tariffs is the way to do it, the thing that you always forgot was that more people in this country buy steel and aluminum than benefit from being in the industry. And all the people who buy steel and aluminum, which is far more than the people inside the industry, we're having to pay far higher prices, which has a greater effect on the economy than letting the free market work within that industry. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. 10 years ago on this day, we got word that Antonin Scalia died. He was on a hunting trip, died in his sleep. I know several members of his family, and they are wonderful, wonderful people. When I wrote one of my books a while back, his son, Chris, was one of the PR people working with me on it. His son, Eugene, is a brilliant lawyer, just wonderful, wonderful people. Listen, I want to urge you, whether you are a Democrat or Republican, progressive or conservative, there's a book you should order. It's called Scalia Dissents. And if you text the word engage to 33777, I'll send you an Amazon link to Scalia Dissents. Here's why you should read this book. One of the most famous things about Antonin Scalia was his dissents when he was in the opposition and lost. And there are numerous famous Scalia dissents where he is the sole dissenter, 8-1, and his dissent was so often so well written that you fast forward to today, and the Supreme Court has embraced Antonin Scalia's dissent as the majority opinion. Or the United States Congress, conservatives and progressives, agreed that Antonin Scalia turned out to be right. His foresight was something. There are very few issues on which I think Scalia got things wrong, one of which was on religious liberty, and he himself changed over time on that, recognizing his prior position was too broad. If you text engage to 33777, I love this book. It's just his dissents, and even a layman who's never been to law school can read them and learn how to be a better writer just by reading Antonin Scalia's dissents. Now, let me tell you about Eden Pure, the Thunderstorm. It is an air purifier. You can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms by texting by going to EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. Now, because they're an air purifier, they get rid of pollen, they get rid of dust, they get rid of pandenta, and they don't use filters, so you never have to buy a filter subscription. They're filterless. They also kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses that flow through because they generate plasma. As the air goes through, the plasma kills the bacteria and viruses. And finally, and most importantly, they're odor eliminators. And if they don't eliminate your odors, you can get a money-back guarantee. You go to EdenPureDeals.com and you put in ERIC3, ERICK3. The odor elimination, I don't actually use them for an air purifier. I use them for odor elimination. I've used them in rental cars. I've used them on my back porch, in hotel rooms. They're small and portable. Plug it up with a USB cord, plug it into the wall. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3, and they just work. Upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV, wherever you need them, they'll wipe out bad odors. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code is ERIC3. Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Today is Friday the 13th. My grandmother was born on a Friday the 13th, so she always found it a lucky day. Some people disagree. Sunday will be Quinquagesima. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term Quinquagesima, it is the 50th day before Easter. Mardi Gras will be on Tuesday. For those of you in Louisiana, Shrove Sunday, some people call it. Quinquagesima, it means the 50th Sunday before, or 50 days before Easter. So 50 days before Easter, that means this Sunday is the last Sunday with which you can make a king cake. In the Mardi Gras season. Tuesday will be Mardi Gras. That will be the last king cake you're allowed to make. And then Lent will happen on Wednesday. And the 40-day Lenten period will begin on Wednesday. So Sunday, I will be on my front porch. I got a brisket from Snake River Farms. I'm going to be smoking a brisket. And we'll make my last king cake of the season on Sunday. Before Lent starts. So there you have it. Prepare yourselves. We're at the Lenten season very shortly. I'm not going to talk about that now. I'm going to talk about something else. This is, well, how do I phrase this? I have a reader named Kathy who I very much value her. She often pushes back on things I write, and I actually like the pushback. And Kathy's a little frustrated with me of late, as are a lot of people, being very critical of the Trump administration and essentially saying that this is going to discourage people from voting. My view has always been different, and I've gotten this for every year I've been in politics, going back to 2004, 2005 when I was at Red State. And I could see what was going to happen in 2006. And in 2005 and 2006, I insisted if the Bush administration didn't clean up its act, deal with the corruption that was festering in the Republican Party, it was going to get blown up in the midterms. And a lot of my readers at Red State at the time would reply back, all you're going to do is discourage people from turning out. And that happens every midterm that you can see is headed in a bad direction. Members of the base believe if we don't rah-rah and cheerlead, that we're going to suppress people from turning out. And some of you think that, I know, because I see your emails. My job's not to carry water for any administration. My job is not to be a cheerleader for administration. My job is to tell you the news, tell you what's happening, and if I, as a conservative activist, can warn that bad things are coming, I have a duty and an obligation to tell you something bad is coming unless we change our ways. In 2005 and 2006, I was very loudly writing at redstate.com and going on television and going on radio shows to warn the Bush administration that it was underestimating the anger at Americans over the war effort. And not only did they really need to engage the surge, they needed to start making, prior to the election, changes within the administration to visibly show the American people they understood and they got it. What complicated the situation for me in 2005 and 2006 is that I was and will remain until my dying breath a fan of Donald Rumsfeld. Donald Rumsfeld was a great American who became a friend, who was far more right than he was wrong. But unfortunately for Rumsfeld, he also became this defining face of the failures of the Bush administration to make changes in Iraq and Afghanistan. And if you read Donald Rumsfeld's great biography that was written with a dear friend of mine helping him, you will see that internally Rumsfeld understood that changes had to be made. The surge did not come until Robert Gates became Secretary of Defense, or at least Robert Gates got the credit for it. Rumsfeld was fired the day after the 2006 election. I wrote for a year and a half that the Republicans were going to be wiped out, and much of the Republican base sent me hate mail on a daily basis saying, you're going to suppress the vote, you're going to kill it, you're going to be responsible for the loss. And my response to every one of them is my response to all of you. If you think I am powerful enough to single-handedly cost the Republicans an election, you overstate my power. But I appreciate you thinking I'm that powerful. My view is that I can see what's coming, and I know how to fix it, and I should be telling all of you how to fix it, so when they fix it, you see, and if they do not fix it, you understand that I'm not to blame for the loss. These people brought it on themselves by their failure to change. The Wall Street Journal has a story today, and it is damning. And it is written by three good reporters. Josh Dawsey, who I know and I think very highly of, left the Washington Post for the Wall Street Journal. He is a brilliant and highly sourced reporter. It is the natural tendency of the Democrats and the Republicans when they read something in a newspaper to presume it's all or most of it is made up when it makes their side look bad. If you take even a quarter of the information in this story as true, Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski need to immediately be driven from the administration. My view is very simple. There is no incentive in the run-up to the midterms for this administration to show competence because every single one of you will defend them and will get mad at me for pointing out the incompetence, claiming that I'm going to cost us the election, not the incompetent people. The incompetent people need to be removed. And when you look at the underlying data, Americans actually do want deportations. They just don't like the way Donald Trump is doing it. 70% want deportations. Americans do want prices to go down. They do think Joe Biden caused prices to go up, but they don't think Donald Trump is fixing the prices. When you look at the underlying data, what you see in the underlying data, and this is the most important thing you're going to hear today, when the underlying data, what you will see is that the American people want to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt to fix things, but they are frustrated because they do not see his team executing to fix the things. And my point time and time again is, Mr. President, if you will fire a couple of these people publicly, it will show the American public you are actually resetting in the way they wish you to reset, and they will give you the benefit of the doubt and stop a blue wave from coming. You will mitigate all of the damage that could come in the midterms if you will just publicly show by firing a few people that you get it, instead of being like George W. Bush, who waited until after the day after the drubbing in 2006 to start firing people. Mr. President, you regularly criticize George W. Bush. Learn from his lesson. Fire people before the midterms instead of after the midterms so that the American people show you some grace to do a full reset. This is the Wall Street Journal. Kristi Noem knew she needed a reset. It was 2 days after federal agents had shot and killed Alex Preddy, and Noem was facing fire from all sides. Even some inside the administration were pushing President Trump to remove her from her position for her handling of the chaotic immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis and comments she'd made saying Preddy committed an act of domestic terrorism. So Noem's top advisor, Corey Lewandowski, messaged Trump's pollster with a request. They needed to cut an ad to help her, according to two people familiar with the episode. The pollster, Tony Fabrizio, ignored the entreaty. Throughout her tenure as Secretary of Homeland Security, a sprawling agency charged with carrying out Trump's central campaign promise of a mass deportation, Noem has attempted to burnish her personal stardom at every turn. With Lewandowski, Trump's former campaign manager, at her side, she has staged a headline-grabbing immigration crackdown while sidelining rivals and dissenters. She's carried out confrontational operations over the objections of longtime immigration officials who warned such flashy displays would discredit the department's ultimate mission. Instead, she's made the case that her approach would lead to more arrests as well as induce people to leave on their own. What you have in this is an absolute case of a secretary within the cabinet who should be publicly frog marched out of Washington, D.C. by Donald Trump to show the American public, message understood, here's my reset. Listen to this. Within the Department of Homeland Security, Noem and Lewandowski frequently berate senior-level staff, give polygraph tests to employees they don't trust, and have fired employees. In one incident, Lewandowski fired a United States Coast Guard pilot because Kristi Noem's blanket was left behind on the airplane. Lewandowski and Noem worked to hastily solidify their relationship with the president, successfully requesting an Oval Office meeting after Preddy's shooting. Days after Preddy's shooting, the pair were spotted sitting together at a Mar-a-Lago wedding of Dan Scavino, longtime Trump advisor. The president attended the wedding. Noem and Lewandowski's close relationship had already made Trump and his top advisors uncomfortable. Lewandowski initially wanted to formally serve as Nome's chief of staff, but Trump rejected the idea due to reports of a romantic relationship of the two. Lewandowski and Nome have lately been using a luxury 737 MAX jet with a private cabin in the back for their travel around the country, according to people familiar with the matter. DHS is leasing the plane, but is in the process of acquiring it for approximately $70 million. The purchase would be double the cost of each of 7 other commercial planes the department is also buying at the pair's direction to carry out deportations. Behind the scenes, Nome and Lewandowski have attempted to curry favor with Trump and box out rivals, including Homan. For months, Nome and Lewandowski have demanded that ICE capture its arrests on video for social media. But more than a week after Preddy's shooting, Nome and Lewandowski berated Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director, for videos that emerged in Minnesota showing federal officers continuing to tangle with protesters. Ladies and gentlemen, 70% of the public wants the deportations to continue, but they don't like the way it's going. Tom Homan has provided a breath of fresh air. Todd Lyons has provided a breath of fresh air. Do you know what Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are doing behind the scenes? They don't like Tom Homan because Tom Homan wants to do a more restrained, less attention-getting set of deportations. And Todd Lyons and Rodney Scott, the head of Border Patrol, and Todd Lyons, the head of ICE, agree with Tom Homan and have been warning that these aggressive mass roundups could cause American citizens and legal resident aliens to get arrested, which is what happened. They urged restraint. So what did Lewandowski and Nome do? They started firing the people around Rodney Scott, the head of Border Patrol, to try to pressure Rodney Scott to resign. They knew Rodney Scott had the favor of the president and they couldn't fire him, so they started firing all the people Rodney Scott had hired and putting their people around Rodney Scott. So he had no one he could trust in the administration to try to drive Rodney Scott from the scene, because Rodney Scott agreed with Tom Homan that the mass roundups that Greg Bovino was doing were going to blow up in the administration's face. Exactly what happened. Mr. President, you've changed your mind on the steel and aluminum tariffs. You now recognize that Epstein file mentioned Howard Lutnick was wrong. You're not going to get rid of Pam Bondi, despite she's the one who caused the Epstein mess to blow up. You're not going to get rid of Lutnick, who's the one who caused the tariff situation to backfire on you. At least get rid of Nome and Lewandowski, who the public has turned against so forcefully. If you do so, it will signal to the American public that you are not the bad guy in this fight. Not only that, you have a government shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security because the Democrats are demanding unreasonable concessions. If you fire Lewandowski and Nome, it will make it look like you're ready for the reset, and you know and I know the Democrats will not be able to reset, and you will have the upper hand on the Democrats when you say Border Patrol and ICE are already funded. I fired Nome and Lewandowski. You Democrats are shutting down TSA. You're the unreasonable ones. I believe I have a duty and an obligation to you, my listeners, and to this cause I serve, to point out that if you keep allowing the incompetence to happen, you're not going to get competence into the run-up of the midterms. You can say, I'm suppressing the vote. I'll tell you, they're suppressing the vote by continuing to subsidize incompetence instead of demanding competence. You want to win the midterms and stop the Democrats, you got to start showing competence. And the way you show the American people most forcefully that, hey, I'm demanding competence, is you fire the incompetent people and demand higher standards from what you're getting. The president, we can all agree, is being ill-served by a lot of advisors. Fire Nome and Lewandowski, do a reset at the Department of Homeland Security, show the American people you share their concerns about what happened. Let Tom Homan, Todd Lyons, and Rodney Scott do their jobs. and then point to the Democrats shutting down the Department of Homeland Security and say, hey, I fired those people. I've reset with Tom Homan. Why are they shutting down your ability to go through airports, which makes no sense? You'll get the upper hand in the shutdown, and you'll be able to do a full reset in time for the midterms at a time inflation is coming down. This makes so much sense. Why are you waiting? Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, this hour of the program brought to you by Van Allen Golf. Had dinner with those guys last night. They'd been to the PGA show. If you want to get the golf lover in your family a great gift, get them the Van Allen putter. VanAllenGolf.com. Text golf to 33777 and I will send you the link. Van Allen Golf. Glad to have them sponsored. I use their putter, and it's phenomenal. Y'all, Southwest Airlines is abandoning every single thing that ever made it unique. I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to become a Harvard business study in the downfall of a beloved brand. I'm a Delta flyer typically. I've flown on Southwest a few times, but it has always had a kind of first come, first serve, get on the plane, no assigned seats. Now they've started assigning seats. Families with small children are being set apart. I saw someone the other day say that their 4-year-old was assigned a seat in a separate row from them. A friend of mine was on a completely empty Southwest flight the other day, was assigned a seat and wasn't allowed to move to a different seat. They have no first class. They set themselves apart in ways that no longer, this is a case study in an airline becoming like every other airline instead of embracing its uniqueness, and that's not going to go well for Southwest, and you can see it coming. Now, what you can also see coming is your inbox being filled up with spam and your phone calls being harassed by people wanting extended warranties and pretending to give you loans or checking on your taxes. And Incogni can partner with you to help wipe that stuff off, wipe it out. Incogni.com/Eric. INCOGNI. Incogni.com/Eric. I started using Incogni when someone sent me one of those data broker sites of myself, and it had links to my children online that I didn't even know had been put up by school websites. The system had tied my kids to me and put up their pictures. And so I signed up with Incogni.com, and it was able to wipe that stuff out. They work behind the scenes to wipe that stuff out. They can for you too. Incogni.com/Eric. Incogni, INCOGNI. Incogni.com/Eric. Sign up today. Get 60% off.